Right. So the students this week have chosen Dr. Huber for our faculty spotlight. So welcome. And I'm excited to talk to you.
Thanks. The first thing I would like to have happen is the students who watch this, if you would please email me and tell me whether or not I should cut my hair. That's an aside. We'll move on.
Okay, awesome. Well, starting with the job, I guess, since this is a faculty spotlight, how long have you been teaching and how long specifically at WCU?
This is my 26th year teaching, and 16 of those have been at WCU. I came in 2004 and started in the fall of 2004.
Nice. All right. And then that leads into some student questions. So students have sent in questions that they would like to know about you or about your subject, which is rhetoric and composition. And there are two questions that two different people ask that kind of relate, which is why did you get into teaching and what inspired you to become a professor?
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably like a lot of the TAs that we have, the reason I got into teaching is because I couldn't afford my master's program, so I applied for a teaching assistantship, right? And I actually applied for a research assistantship, and they gave me a teaching assistantship, and I read the letter and I looked at it and I went, do you really want me in a classroom? Like, have you seen me interact with people? And they're like, yes, we want you to teach. And we didn't have any training. First semester, right in the deep end of the pool. First semester of my master's work, I taught my first class. And I saw it as a temporary thing. I was just going to teach for 2 years and call it good. But my very first semester, I had a student. Her name, I was in an urban university setting, and we had a huge variety of students with a lot of variables to deal with. And the very first student who asked me for an office visit, her name was DeAndrea, and she wanted to talk to me. It was like first week as a teacher because she was homeless and trying to figure out how to navigate doing college with no resources. And I was like, oh my heavens, yes. So I ended up devoting that entire semester to getting resources for students who just didn't have them. And I mean, very simple things, like textbooks and paper and, things like that. And so that really kind of hooked me from there on. And when I finished the 2 years of my master's degree, I was like, okay, how fast can I get back in a classroom? And I have not regretted that decision one moment since.
Wow. That's amazing. Have you talked to that student since you taught them?
No, I got her permission to write about her in my very first article, and she said, yes, oh my gosh, that's so great. And then her email went defunct, and I've not spoken to her since. So that's been 26 years.
Wow.
I have no idea. I should really Google search, shouldn't I? I should Google search.
Yeah, why not?
I remember her last name though. I don't
Yeah.
have any idea what her last name is, but yeah.
That would be cool if you could reconnect.
It would. That would be really interesting.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So next, similar topic about teaching. What is your favorite rhetorical theory to teach?
Well, you ask any of my former graduate students, and they know that I love Nietzsche night. Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah, see, you're rolling your eyes because you know.
Oh.
No, I look, Nietzsche, and there's a reason I love Nietzsche. He sits in that middle ground between, he's kind of the tipping point between classical rhetoric and modern rhetoric. And his theories about truth and reality and illusion um, are really, really important. And they make that shift into what we now kind of commonly know as modern rhetorical theory. And it's always that night when you get the most aha looks on the students' faces. It's like, oh my gosh. Or the student that comes up to you at the end of the class and says, I am very concerned that I don't exist anymore. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's the night where the chair ceases to be a chair. And
Couch.
if you know, you know, couch. So yes, I love Nietzsche night. It's my favorite night. I make Facebook posts about Nietzsche night. Favorite night of the semester.
All right. Well, now everyone knows.
Now everyone knows how much I love Nietzsche, who by the way was not a very nice human being. But moving on, good theory.
Well, last specifically teaching related question, but a student wants to know, how do you decide what discussion questions to lead and guide a class with and through?
I'm a big picture question kind of person. I call them umbrella questions. And these are questions that kind of scoop up a lot of little issues that might be in and throughout the text that we've read, or the film that we've watched, or whatever it is that we've done. And try to take that text outside into the world, and ask big questions, important questions, things that have to do with life and reality and truth. Those I don't tend to stay in the text a lot, and my students know this. It's like, I know I need to have read it, but now I have to figure out how to get out of that text, right? And those are the answers that mean things, because they connect a lot of different things and not just the material that's in the text. So yeah, umbrella questions. Big fan of umbrella questions.
Got it. And that probably works well for transfer too, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, my doctoral degree was interdisciplinary, and so I have work in English and in history. And so I was trained. I had two separate comps committees, two separate dissertation committees, two separate and equal number piles of coursework. And so I was trained to cross lines whenever possible. And the only way to do that is to rise above it and get the big questions. So yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Very cool. And you talked about why you got into teaching and what you love to teach about rhetorical theory, but what inspired your love of English and rhetoric in general?
So I'm going to go back to that first semester of my master's degree. I was going in, I had written a play about, my undergraduate degree was in creative writing and playwriting. And I had written a play about Vietnam. And because I'm showing my age here, by the way, Vietnam was not way in the past when I was doing this. It was newly done. And I went into my master's degree trying to figure out, my umbrella question at that point was, why did the United States get into Vietnam, and why did it take us so long to get out? And that's kind of where my research led me. And what I realized very, very quickly, I mean, very quickly, like within the first semester of research, was that there were language choices made during the Cold War, some 20, years prior, that made Vietnam almost inevitable. That these language is power, and language creates, and language moves reality. And there were language choices that had been made at the administrative level and in magazines and newspapers that made this war an inevitability. And I thought, oh my God, given those kinds of stakes, language is really the most important area of study. And so I switched during the middle of my first semester into rhetoric, and
Wow.
there I was, right? And so I also have not regretted a single day. And language, is important in, literature moves people, poetry moves people, all of these things having to do with language, they create reality, and they can be abused, as we have learned.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Um, as we have learned, yes.
And speaking of,
Speaking of,
when would you say you really got into politics? Because for those watching that don't know, you are very much into politics, and that's your job. You've
that's
said.
my job. My expertise, my scholarly expertise is political rhetoric. I mean, I started with the Cold War, so there you
Yeah.
So I tell anyone who wants to really understand me and know me the following. My daddy was a preacher and my mom worked in politics. Ta-da! And yes, I see, religion as a political endeavor as well. And believe me, my daddy was a great preacher. He was super rhetorical, right? He gave these big, great speeches. And so, I mean, really, I don't remember a time when I was not into politics. It's just, that's who I am. That's who my family is, and that's who my kids are. So,
Yeah. Well, what would you recommend for students who want to be more active and engaged in what's happening in the world, who haven't been before?
I am going to steal something from a friend of mine, because I was going crazy for a while. Like, I can't do everything. Like, I can't be involved in everything. I can't be engaged in everything, but there's so much injustice and so much that needs to be done, and yada, yada, yada. And my friend, Byron, said, pick three. And she tells everybody this, pick three. And put all that you've got into your personal top three. Do all of your activism, all of your engagement into those three. And then you kind of have to trust that the other things that need to be done are on somebody else's top three list, so that everybody's kind of got everything covered, and your top three can change, like as circumstances change. Like right now, my top one is voting rights, because it's just hugely important right now. So I give to those kinds of organizations, and I engage in those kinds of activities, to make sure that yet more voters are not disenfranchised.
Nice. Thank you for that. And playing off of that too, what about for when they want to read more and ingest more? How do you get started in that? Where do you go?
Well, once you've picked your top three,
Mm.
it's not that different than researching for a master's thesis or a capstone project in your undergraduate class. The first thing you have to do is see what other people are saying about it, see what facts are on the ground. Because let's face it, there has never been a time, in my humble opinion, there has never been a time where disinformation is so rampant, right? And disinformation is everywhere. And if you just read a couple of good articles, you're already behind the curve. You've got to see what everybody is saying and get as much information as you can. And then, knowing about things. Okay, great. You know about things. Woohoo. So what, right? What kind of action can you envision to help fix it? Not to fix it, because you're not God. To help fix it, right? One little thing. Will writing this letter help? Will, voting for this candidate help? Will making this phone call help? Little actions, little actions, little actions. You're not going to fix everything by yourself. Nobody is. Not even the president of the United States is going to fix everything by himself. So this is a team sport. Politics is a team sport. You got to get in there.
Yeah. Thank you again. That's very helpful advice, and I hope it helps others too. We're going to start backing down, I guess, from the heavy topics. Now, I didn't learn this until after most of a semester in a class with you and him, but you work with your son. Your son, Jason Huber, is also a professor, and I didn't realize he was your son until all the way through my semester in a class with you two. What is it like to work with him?
Well, I mean, he's a better writer than I am, so that's kind of a pain in the butt. Honestly, I'm very, very proud of him. He's a great teacher. He's a great scholar. He's a great writer, and he's a pretty awesome human being. And the only, kind of downside to this is that I now have to, I used to be able to just put Huber on all my documents, and now I have to put B. Huber on all my documents. I'm just saying he should have thought of that before this job. I'm just saying. But no, he's great. His office is a whole floor behind mine. We are there sometimes weeks at a time and never see each other on campus. So
Wow.
teach the same classes, we both teach the same 202 class. I mean, not the same class. He's got his own pedagogy and stuff, but we both teach 202. So it's nice to be able to also sometimes get feedback on your assignments and stuff like that. And yeah, I ask him for feedback just as much as he asks me for feedback. He's
Very
a
cool.
dude. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And then for other future professors, because I know that I took rhetorical theory with you, and he was in that class because he wasn't able to take it when he was in the grad program here. And now he's a
conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is one piece of advice you would give for future professors?
Okay, as teachers, I think it's really important that you put your ego aside and meet your students on the ground on which they live, and let them teach you, because they will teach you. If you are listening, they will teach you how to reach them, and they will teach you how to help them, right? And also they will teach you. They will just teach you cool stuff that you didn't know. And that's super awesome. Also, I want to kind of steal a line from Mike Rose, who is kind of my own personal composition guru, hero person, who said in a book called Lives on the Boundary. If you haven't read it, go get it. Students will always rise to the mark you set. And so I believe very strongly in that you should always set the mark higher than you think they can catch, right? And then flip instantly into cheerleader mode. As I can't tell you how many times a semester, how many times a week I say or write the following: you got this, you got this, you got this, and it's just 3 words. And I can't tell you what a difference it makes with students, because they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I do got this, I got it, and so I think you can do both. I think you can have high standards and set the mark, and then turn into the cheerleader and help them get up there, right? Without feeling like you're compromising anything within your own teaching and within your own discipline. Now, for future professors as scholars, my one piece of advice is don't let anyone ever tell you what constitutes real scholarship. You follow your passion. You research or engage in the scholarly pursuits that you want to engage in. And the university is opening up. We see all kinds of things as valid and valuable scholarship now.
Nice. Thank you for that too. And before, I usually leave this as one of the last questions, and it still sort of is, but one question that I always ask is, what advice do you have for students? And that could be your undergrad students or graduate students, a combination.
Be kind to yourself. Every one of us felt like we were drowning at some point in our academic careers. All of us, sometimes multiple times, we have felt like we are drowning. Be kind to yourself and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and wake up every day and say, what's next? And only worry about what's next. Don't worry about the whole list of other things you got to do. You don't worry about that part of the list until it's next. And then when you say what's next, there it will be. And then you can worry about it. So, I mean, so much of grad school, so much of undergrad, so much of being a student anywhere is taking things one at a time, just not trying to pile everything onto yourself at once. I guess it's a kind of organization, but I think it's more psychological than that,
Mm.
So what's next? That's it. That's all you got to know. What's next?
All right. I will make sure to start asking myself that.
What's next, right? And I know what your last question is going to be.
Yes. My last question. Can you tell us about your new little kitten?
Georgie, bless his little heart. I mean, he cannot come down to the basement because there's too much. This is where I'm sitting. I'm sitting in my basement. There is too much down here, and we would never find him. He would. Oh, but for those of you who don't know, we were outside and we heard mewing from the engine block of my daughter's car, and we raised the hood and we still couldn't see him. Meow, meow. And my husband saw just the very tippy top of his head in the engine block. And so he kind of reached down and just kind of squished the top of his head, and Georgie popped out like, oh, okay, you're my family. Here we are. Yay, I've been waiting. He was, at the time, he was 4 weeks and just the teeny tiniest, ittle bittiest little thing. Now he is older, but he's still a little bitty thing. He is definitely the runt of some kitties' litter. He is 5 pounds max.
Wow.
Yeah, he is a tiny, tiny little thing. He's probably 4 or 5 months old. I really have lost track. But he's running around the house, his little 5 pound self with 75-pound dogs.
Oh gosh.
So it's an interesting house. And it's like, don't step on Georgie. Don't eat the cat. Please stop licking the cat. Yeah, it's but he's great. He's a definite member of our family.
Nice.
See, they should all know that you were there when we found the cat, or you were in my class when we found the cat. So you got to
Yes.
and see all the little teeny tiny Georgie pictures.
So cute. Hopefully we can include some of those pictures in
Okay,
this interview
I'll
too.
make sure you get a recent Georgie picture.
Awesome. All right. And then before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share for your time in the spotlight?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I don't think you students and realize that your English professors are literally the best on the planet. They are super smart, super collegial, um, super caring and kind, and y'all picked a good place to be, and I am grateful to be here as well with that amazing group of people. And y'all aren't half bad yourselves. So way to go. We all ended up in the right place at the right time.
Awesome. Dr. Huber's thumbs up of approval, I guess. Well, I would say that is a good place to stop.
Yeah.
So thank you again for joining me. It was great talking to you.
All right. Thank y'all. Bye.
Bye.